Disclaimer. This video talks about combat. And combat is often hurting other people. We here at Ace Role-Playing Games do not endorse hurting other people or using violent responses in any circumstance, especially for teenagers or children. So we do not endorse or encourage the use of violence that could result in the harm to another individual. If you are going to use any sort of dangerous tool or weapon, we encourage you to make sure you do so under adult supervision with adult guidance and with proper instruction and safety precautions taken. Because, frankly, we like having you here. It's a good world with you in it. We're gaming for good, not learning how to hurt people and other things like that just because we can. We do not endorse outside of game violence. And in game, we only endorse PG-13 level violence because, frankly, it's not worth going into all the detail. And people really do get hurt by this stuff. So I just wanted to throw this quick disclaimer in here at the outset of the video to just say, if you are having problems, find a trusted adult or leader, could even be your Ace Role-Playing Game sponsor, but confide in them, ask them for help, let them find a way to help you, and bring in the proper people, mental health counselors, police, or whatever other official person needs to be brought in order to help you resolve the conflicts you are having in your life. Because ultimately, part of the reason why we play these role-playing games is to develop our minds so that we can, in turn, not need to resort to violence and can find better ways out. Yes, I have mentioned before that I am a trained martial artist or self-defender. I am a trained shooter. And I may have those things as part of my real life. But one, I've never had to use them. And two, I hope to never have to use them. Because I would rather go out of this life as an old man, never having been shot at, never having been stabbed at, never having been punched at in true aggression. And to say at the old folks' home, as I'm sitting there or sitting in my home with my wife, gumming my soup, saying, the worst I ever did was hurt someone's feelings. So may the same be said of you. May you find peace to resolve your situations. And now, sit back and enjoy the next video in our combat series. Hey Acers! Glad to join you again. This is the Ace Role-Playing Games channel, and I'm the host, Mason Emerson, and it's good to see you all again. Welcome back to our Ace Role-Playing Games Club channel where we're gaming for good. So, this is a continuation on of the combat section, or the overall rules, basic rules section of Savage Worlds. And like I said before, this is just my take on it. This is some quotes from the original stuff. This is not sponsored by Pinnacle Entertainment, but you have me recommending to every one of you Acers out there, go order the $40 core rulebook. And if you can't afford that right now, just get the $10 PDF. Because if you order the $40 rulebook from their website, they give you the $10 PDF anyway. So, like me, you'll end up with a couple licenses for a couple PDFs. But they do have some updates to it from what I got originally and all that kind of stuff. And it's definitely worth it. I'll talk more about the price point in another video, but I just wanted to make sure that I put that plug out there that Savage Worlds is your best and most effective version of any kind of rule system that you're going to be able to get, at least according to my experience. I mean, albeit I like Index Card. I like what I've seen of Cortex. Genesis was okay, but for my money, Savage Worlds is where it's at. And they've got a really cool special going on. I will plug that as well on their Game Changer, which is their version of kind of a Kickstarter crowdfunding kind of thing. They're doing right now a big box set of superhero stuff, specifically focused on their Necessary Evil series. Now, they've just come out with the third installment to the Necessary Evil storyline, and this one's at cosmic superheroes level. So that's where this one's getting really cool. And we're talking cosmic superheroes like Superman and, just those super, super powered superheroes, where basically there's nothing on Earth that can stop you. And I know that my friend Tracy Sizemore, shout out, she ran a really cool adventure for this. I don't know if it's in there or not, but I know that Tracy's been involved with this cosmic level superhero stuff, and she's just amazing. And if you find any Tracy Sizemore story, it's always worth the run. I've run Teen Crush multiple times. I've run Disaster Grand Atomica multiple times. This fall for the October Savage Worlds grown-up table, I'm going to be running The Curious Death of Violet Evans from East Texas University, and that one's going to be a blast. That's one of the settings I'm really looking forward to seeing updated to Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. But unfortunately, some of these things, by the time they get around to updating to Adventure Edition, they're going to be getting ready for the next edition. But I don't see a reason why they need to right now, because right now, Adventure Edition is where it's at. It's been out, Savage Worlds itself has been out for 20 years. And that's an amazing amount of time for a role-playing game to have stuck around this long. And Adventure Edition came out in, they kickstarted it in 2018 and they officially put it out in 2019. So we're only 4 years into it and it's doing great. So talking about Adventure Edition, which is the most current set of the rules, you can find older editions online, but don't go for them. Even with the deluxe book being only $10, yeah, you can get the PDFs for $10, the PDF for $10, and put it on your smartphone or your tablet or whatever, your computer. You use it all. I use it all the time, and that's actually where what I use up on the other screen to talk about the rules that I'm talking about with you guys. So let's talk about attacking. As you can see from the cover photo of this is like, sword and gun. We're ready to go, but there's some stuff to be said about that, and if you have any questions, of course, you can always email me at the email link below. I'm glad to explain stuff more. And my main purpose of putting that email link in there is I want you to reach out to me or have your friends, have them watch these videos, have them reach out to me. I will tell them how they can set up their own ACE role-playing games club. And wherever they're at, they'll be able to start their own club and tell their own stories, because that's what ACE is all about. So let's get into this. I think I might have mentioned, I know I did mention last time, because of my self-defense training and my training to how to shoot and how to, everything like that. I've been trained a little bit how to move. I'm a big body, so, I kind of got to get moving a little bit more, but that's okay, because this is a case of movement in a fictionalized world. Now, in most fictionalized worlds, there will be combat. And the thing about combat is this: your characters do know how to move. They know how to move like soldiers, like martial artists, or maybe they're not combat trained and maybe they're a journalist along for the ride. So maybe they don't know how to move. But regardless, they might need to attack. Now, I like to use that example that I used in the very first episode talking about the dice system. I like to use that as an example of how combat works. Now, there are two kinds of combat that you mainly deal with. There are melee, or however you say it. It's a French word. I've seen it in role-playing games only most of my life. I think I did see it a few times on paper in what was it, when I was fencing. I think I saw it a few times when I was fencing, and that's pretty cool stuff. I'm just shutting off something over here. That's pretty cool stuff. That's pretty good times. But melee basically means hand-to-hand combat or up close and personal. It's where your sword play comes in, your knife play, your just your hands. Those kind of things come into melee combat. The other kind of combat that you have is ranged combat. So in the cover photo for this, or the thumbnail, it's showing an example of each weapon or of each type of combat mainly. Now, there are other kinds of things that are grouped in with combat, and those are things like supporting another combatant or doing healing checks while under fire or psionic or magic attacks, things like that. A superpower, those kind of things are also lumped kind of in this whole overall bubble of combat. And I'll get to those aside things in a little bit. But first, let's talk about melee combat. Now, melee combat is one of the exceptions to the target number being 4. With melee combat, you need to hit, in order to hit the person, you have to hit their parry. And the parry is determined by 1/2 the fighting die plus 2. So if a fighting die can roll 6, 1/2 of that is 3, plus 2 is 5. So that's what you get. You get that is the way it works for melee combat. So most people, if they have any fighting training, are going to have a 4 or a 5. Now, even so, a lot of people don't even have combat training. So they're going to have a parry of 2. And so that means they're going to be pretty easy to hit. And some people are just shooters and they're not fighters. And that's fine. And so they have a parry of 2, but they don't plan on letting anybody get that close to them to actually hit their 2. Some people are diehard fighters and they have if you got a D12, you're going to have a parry of 8. And probably by that point, you're going to have some edges and advances that raise your parry even beyond that. That's things you can do with the Savage Worlds rules. But let's focus in on an average person with a D6 in fighting. Or somewhat less than average person because they actually have the fighting. They have a D6 in fighting, and they therefore have a parry of 5. So that means the target number on your dice to hit has to be a 5 or better. Now, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all regular hits. And that's fine. They just do the basic amount of damage that the weapon does. But when you hit 9, that's 5 and 4 above the 5, which means that you've got a raise. Any raise after that initial 5 to hit gives you a bonus D6 in your damage. Now, back in the earlier editions of Savage Worlds, that kept adding. Every raise gave you like an extra +1, +2, +3, +4. And so you could do mega amounts of damage without getting aces on the fighting dice. And I'll get to how to figure damage in a little bit. But right now we're just talking about hitting your target. And so hitting your target is based off of your agility. It's based off of rolling and using your agility through fighting. Fight agility limits how much fighting you can take without paying double the points. So agility is, and through fighting determines how you hit, as well as shooting. So in both cases, they're agility-based skills. And agility-based is the limit to how high you can take those without paying 2 points per advance, or using a full advance to advance one skill beyond its associated attribute. So you're going to be rolling that fighting to actually hit. Now, the damage that you do in melee combat is based on your strength. But actually hitting what you're aiming at is based on your agility. So that's the main difference. Let's talk a little bit about shooting for a minute. And shooting is the skill that covers, of course, ranged weapons. And the nice thing about Savage Worlds is it doesn't get too nitpicky. A lot of games can. And I have no problem with those games if those are the games you like to play. But the basic principle of learning how to aim, learning how to carefully release the weapon, whether that's squeezing a trigger or whether that's letting an arrow go, that's your ranged attack. And your target number there is a 4. Now, you might ask, what about thrown weapons? Throwing knives, grenades, um, things, not spears, things like that. That's going to use your athletics skill, which is also based on your agility. So if you are making a thrower, yeah, give them a higher athletics skill. So the 3 skills you're going to use in combat are either fighting, shooting, or throwing, which is athletics. Fighting, shooting, athletics. Those are your 3. If you're going to make a combat monkey, fighting, shooting, and athletics. Those are the ones you want to have. Now, remember that the target number to hit at short range is a 4. But when you get to medium range, you have to take that. You take a -2 penalty. So now the number is a 6. When you get to long range, you take another -2 penalty to that. So now the long range is an 8. You have to roll an 8 or better to succeed in your shot. Now, there are other edges and abilities and gear pieces and things like that that can reduce that. Again, going back to the skills themselves, these are abstracted. So, like I said, shooting a bow and shooting a revolver is the same skill. Now, if you have a world where there is archery and firearms and things like that, there's nothing wrong with the game master saying, okay, archer, you've just picked up that rifle and you're going to aim it and shoot it, but you have a -2 penalty because you're unfamiliar with the weapon. There's nothing wrong with that. So there is flexibility built into the game to adjust for the fact that an archer is not going to be firing off a howitzer and accurately hitting what they're aiming at. They don't even know how to aim it. Maybe it's a -4, -6, but they still have a better shot than somebody who's completely unskilled in it. So with ranged attacks, there is a -8 penalty if you do extreme range, but you have to have a weapon that's capable of shooting extreme range. And usually, the people who are shooting extreme range, like your snipers and stuff, have a D12 in the skill, have a scope on their rifle, have a bipod, have a more powerful weapon. And so they're going to, and they have the marksman edge. They're taking an aim maneuver. They're using all the rules to turn that -8 into like a +2. But when they go for a headshot at extreme range, that goes back down to another -4 on top of that. So it's a -12. It's really not advisable to try and take a headshot at long range. It may be cool in the movies, but most people who actually shoot long range rifles will tell you just go for the main mass, and the bullet will take care of itself because you're kind of lobbing it out there anyway. And that's actually how a lot of those like 50 BMG big sniper rifles, that's actually how they shoot them at over a mile, sometimes mile and a half. They shoot them by shooting the rifle up into the air after it's been aimed. They raise it up. They shoot that bullet out, and because of the Earth's curvature and gravity, that bullet drops and smacks into their target. Causes a lot of problems because that's a 50 caliber round, half an inch. That's huge. But Savage Worlds doesn't get into really all those complete little nitty gritty things. You don't get a different bullet ammo thing that you roll for. You don't roll different dice for a tracer round versus a regular round. As a matter of fact, when you have a rate of fire 3 weapon, you're actually firing off 10 rounds, and as far if you're counting them. But you do get to only roll three of your shooting dice on that. But those 3 shooting dice can sure mess up your day if the bad guys are rolling them at you. So the idea, of course, is on focusing in on shooting. There's a rate of fire, like I said, for the weapon. That's actually the next section there. And when you roll the rate of fire, you roll your wild die with it if it's you shooting it. And there is something to be said about recoil. And so I'll get to that in a second. So rate of fire, kind of their table that they give on page 93 of the handbook, is that a rate of fire of 1 shoots 1 bullet. A rate of fire of 2 weapon shoots 5 in a round, or that could be a 3-round burst, basically. The rate of fire 3 is 10, 4 is 20, 5 is 40, 6 is 50. So, and here's the other thing. Firing more than 1 shot, this is from the book, firing more than 1 shot in one action from a weapon subtracts 2 from the attacker's shooting rolls. So, and that's covered in recoil. But unless the weapon says otherwise, a shooter can fire less shots than his weapon's maximum rate of fire. So that's a short rundown on fighting. Obviously, if you're fighting in melee, you're not going to run out of bullets. And really, unless you crit fail in the GM and you agree, you're probably not going to be losing your weapon either. If you roll a crit fail in shooting, that's something that will come up later, but I will talk about critical or about failures on your shooting dice and innocent bystanders. But that's coming up later. In our next video, we're going to talk about damage and how to apply it apply it when you hit. But that's just my take on these rules, and I'm hoping that this builds on what we've seen so far. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. It's down below, and I will gladly respond to you, and I'll try and do it within 24 to 48 hours. And if you're ready to set up your club, let me know. I'll be glad to help you start working to find your adult sponsor, and we'll get them through a background check, through accidental and everything. I accidentally ended up with 2 background checks now. So I have an FBI background check too, and I'm clear there. So, but I hope that you guys are having a wonderful time playing your games, telling your stories, and building friendships that will last lifetimes, and finding out that you are needed. You are needed in this world, and the world is a better place because you're in it. I love you, if no one has told you that today. And we're gaming for good here, so this is Ace Role Playing Games. Until next time.